That was meant to be a quick point in support of Sukjae. A really quick question about Leibniz, and I know we're running out of time. With respect to the conditions on a sage's or a truly virtuous person's reaction to physical evil that you mentioned, you say, unlike the Victorian woman who is supposed to just think of England or the other savages who have various other techniques, the truly virtuous person will also not just think about joy or have joy or set joy as his or her end, but also do this in a way that's not morally neutral or dubious. And I wondered if someone really is innocent in this case and an adult and truly virtuous, why, if it just so happens psychologically that for them a morally neutral psychological technique is the only thing that will work, something analogous to thinking of England, if you will, or looking at the dentist's wallpaper, why would Leibniz resist the thought that that would be appropriate if that's what gives the person joy?
Well, maybe that's a stage that we should pass through, and that would be very much in the spirit of Leibniz, right? We begin by, with techniques that are perhaps even morally dubious or just neutral, like staring hard at the pattern in the curtains. That's the way it is with someone near the beginning of the process that Sukjae talked about. But the more virtuous become, the more able we are to perfect our techniques so that we're, instead of staring hard at the pattern in the curtains, we're reflecting on the fact that God is just, so that the universe is ordered by divine providence. So maybe there are stages here. That would be very Leibnizian.
The last question. This is a very broad question, actually. I'm puzzled. I started out being puzzled about the connection between what innocence is for Leibniz, the connection between Malebranche's notion of innocence and Leibniz's notion of innocence. Leibniz does not stress the fall, but he does, of course, stress the fact that every human being is limited. And I take it that the guilt that attends any particular human being is a function of the limitations, the degree of limitations on that person's nature. And with that in view, it does seem to me that also picking up some themes that have been brought up earlier, that the ability to put it, I'll just put it this way, to take joy in the world, including the pain and suffering that there is in the world and one's own pain in the world, is what, as I understand it, Leibniz takes virtue to be. That is, virtue is love of the world and through the world love of God, or maybe directly love of God. But it's taking pleasure in the world as we find it, and because and as a result of the fact that it's a manifestation of God. It does seem to me that virtue comes in degrees, according to Leibniz, and that a particular person has maybe more or less capacity for virtue, and every particular person has developed their capacity for virtue to a certain extent at any particular point in time. Having said all that, I think my question comes down to this. Does it turn out that to the extent one is not virtuous, one is not innocent? And to the extent that one is virtuous, one can derive joy from the suffering that one experiences. So that in that kind of very simple way, Leibniz responds to this problem about the innocent not suffering.
Are you suffering joy from the suffering that you... Are you experiencing joy from the suffering that you experience, or are you experiencing joy because you see that your suffering is included in the best of all possible worlds as part of the package deal as a necessary condition of all the goods that the world contains? I wouldn't have thought you were experiencing joy in suffering as such, were you?
Thank you. That's no doubt a better way of putting it.
Okay.
But I take it that's what virtue is.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a really philosophically self-conscious virtuous person, that person will think in a Leibnizian spirit, well, we couldn't have all the good properties of this world without this pain that I'm having right now, but the pain itself is not something that you take joy in, but it's being a necessary condition of all the goods the world undoubtedly contains.
Okay, well, this is the end of the first session. Let us thank Nicholas Jolley and